Let's see here. Okay. So we're talking about Katrina. If anyone has any memories of where they were during Katrina, were you born yet? That's what we're talking about today is Hurricane Katrina because it's a 20-year anniversary. I can't believe it's been that long, but it has been. It's been that long. And so, I'll just wait till anybody gets in here to see if anyone has any memories. I should have maybe optimized my title a little better. I don't know. Typically, we just say 20 years since Katrina, and everyone knows what Katrina is because it was such a devastating hurricane. And, I do remember watching it on TV, and now there's a lot of people have mixed feelings because I think what's coming out is they're saying that a lot of things were staged, and maybe things were not happening as portrayed on TV, possibly. I'm not quite sure. Or they made it look worse than what it was. I don't know. I really don't know. Um, because I know that TV tends to clickbait things, and I think they're doing that currently. I was thinking about that, the clickbaiting of that they're using even for government right now, that TV is doing for their own. Oh my gosh, when I thought about YouTube and the watch time, nobody else can actually go live 24 hours a day. So the bar has been set so high on YouTube related to we are talking about Hurricane Katrina. So if you have anything you would like to 20 years since Hurricane Katrina. So if you have anything you would like to share related to reflections or anything like that, or what you were doing. I mean, these are typically the same questions that everybody asks all the time anyway. And so the thing I was thinking about with YouTube is the bar is set so high that nobody can even achieve, the live streaming, because the thing is, it's like, okay, there's people, um, Tessa Rochford Leopold. Okay, hello. And so, and so right now, in order for a person to actually get their watch time, they would have to be part of a network. That's what it seems like. They'd have to be part of a network right now because this is what the networks do, is so they can just plug in onto YouTube and play their channel autonomously all the time. The rest of us don't have the ability to do that. And so, because I was looking at the watch hours, and so a person has to have 4,000 watch hours within a year. 4,000 watch hours within a year. And that's an awful lot. Now, I know YouTube has said in the analytics that sometimes things don't update as fast as what we think they should. So I'm unclear on that. I've always been unclear on how that works, how it works. But I was thinking about individual YouTubers competing with networks and being able to get 10 million views, because that's what I'm seeing on my channel, is that I have to have like 10 million views in order to get monetization, if that's right. I'm not sure. That's what it's looking like. And so anyway, let's get back to Katrina though. Tessa, do you have anything any memories or anything on Hurricane Katrina? Anything on Hurricane Katrina that you would like to share? Were you born yet? Are you an old person? um, it seems like they're still doing the same bad practices. And when I say that, I'm trying to be as kind as I can, but they always are doing the same bad practices in building houses in flood zones. And so right now it seems like the government is trying to tackle that problem. And because more and more and more houses are being built in flood zones, I don't consider that an investment or a long-term investment. Maybe some people do. The only people who get an investment out of that is Wall Street, because then they've got their home builders always building houses because they're always getting destroyed with hurricanes. That's what's taking place. And so, yes, it's great for Wall Street, and it's great for maybe some insurance companies who sell insurance. It's not good for the people who have to pay. So the government is who has to pay. The government and the taxpayers are who has to pay. And so there's other ones who sell the insurance, and then they just make a profit just from selling the insurance. Okay, so George Darnell. Okay. George Darnell, hello. Do you have anything you'd like to say related to Hurricane Katrina, or any place that you moved to after Hurricane Katrina that you regret moving to because then you found out you're in the same situation? I believe a lot of coastal people are finding out, and that they moved to a coastal area that is doing the same thing they have done down in New Orleans. And that's one of the things I distinctly remember at this time of the year. It's been 20 years ago. I know exactly where I was um, during Hurricane Katrina, and I would have never anticipated in a million years that a future place that I was moving to would have been in the same situation as Hurricane Katrina related to flooding. And so, um, so I don't exactly call that an investment. When you move to a place and you have excessive flooding, catastrophic flooding, I don't exactly call that an investment as far as that goes. And, you know, presumably the FBI was supposed to be investigating it. I don't know if they are or not. So I don't know how it's job creation either, other than tourism. And 20 years ago, I do distinctly remember them saying on TV. They said, well, maybe these places. This is what they said on TV. They said, well, maybe these places should belong to the hotels. They said maybe it's just going to become tourism in the future, and it's just going to belong to hotels. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. But no one could have anticipated the inflation that takes place along with that. Because when they just put in a whole bunch of things that are for Wall Street, then all you have is a Wall Street community. And it's not a place that's inviting for people to live. It's just more for travel and tourism. Well, right now, You've got fixed incomes. I mean, the people in Florida, I believe them. There's no reason for me not to. I didn't believe. The thing is, it's like I never not believed. I mean, it never crossed my mind to not believe people when it was happening to them, when I was seeing it on TV. And then to think that I'm stuck in one of those shitty communities that, I mean, they're very ungrateful because it's a Wall Street community. I think New Orleans is probably a Wall Street community too, with travel and tourism. I'm pretty positive it is. That and Biloxi and Mobile, those places that had all the casinos and everything. And it was ironic, the area where I lived, same situation, same identical thing. And actually, the city that I lived near was in the same. They said it was one of the three cities that's actually slated to be underwater, like in the next 50 years. And when I say underwater, I literally mean that the ocean is going to be over the city itself. There's going to be no tide whatsoever. And and so then that becomes a problem for where people are going to live. And so apparently this must not be a very popular topic to talk about anymore. But I don't know. I don't. It must not be a very popular topic to talk about. But I just wanted to talk about it because the thing for me is that I wasn't married yet at that point. In 2005, I wasn't married, but I distinctly remember watching the hurricane over this period of time, and I was thinking that during this period of time was when my daughter had, I think, yeah, she had the second baby, and her husband was treating her really crappy, and he called me looking for her. um, Hello, Liam the King. And so he called me looking for my daughter, and I said, well, I don't know where she is. She hasn't called me. And he says, well, she's missing with the girls. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then goes in and he's telling me about, he's like, well, he's like, most of the time she acts decent, but right now she's acting like she don't even have half a brain. And, so he was being, I don't know. Then I tried to get a hold of her. This was before we had cell phones and everything. It was more like Facebook and so. But a lot of the time he was gone though. He was deployed over someplace else in Iraq. And so I was watching Hurricane Katrina and everything that was going on. And of course, that was devastating and it lasted for weeks and weeks and weeks afterwards. And they had a lot to talk about in the media. And I watched the eye go. To me, it looked like it went straight over the city. And I kept saying to my ex-husband, which at the time we were still together, and I said, it looks to me like the eye is going straight over. I mean, and that's the video footage that came up today was the hurricane, and it was going straight over the city, even though they said it went more to the east. And so I distinctly remember that, and he's like, "Oh no, you're just," he says, "You're just seeing it wrong." And but then on TV, then they're talking about the wobble, and it could go in anywhere. He said, no, when I lived in Florida, things like that happen all the time. Nobody takes the hurricanes seriously, because they make this big hype on TV all the time, and then nobody wants to leave. And so that's just how he described it. And so I watched Hurricane Katrina. Mr. Laughs 1 2. Hello. And so I just remember watching Hurricane Katrina and everything that was going on, and it was so bizarre to see them stealing the TVs during the hurricane. That never made any sense to me. And they were broadcasting that on TV with people humping these huge, like, 50 inch, 32 to 50 inch TVs on their backs. And I always thought, why in the world are they doing that during the hurricane? Because they're on TV and now someone's going to see them and they're going to know who they are after all is said and done, aren't they? I mean, it was so strange that that was taking place during the hurricane. Now there's people speaking out about it now. And it sounds to me like what they're saying is that it was staged, that someone had paid them to do that. So and it very well could be similar to September 11th too, because now I haven't heard anybody say that anything was specifically staged during September 11th, and that there was some footage or something, with them running in the cafe and stuff like that. Um, But it does sound like that was staged during Hurricane Katrina, but that's during those hurricanes in that time frame. What was it, like 3 years in a row? There was a bunch of hurricanes all at the same time. Now, just because you put hurricanes on TV, that means you put hurricanes on TV. People are still going to move places, because if you don't tell people specifically that a place is a bad place to move, or if you keep building houses there and things like that, then people think it's going to be an okay place and suitable to live, which is not true. And so these places, and so one of the things that I had said, and I'm repeating it again, during that time frame, someone on the legacy media said something about that they thought, because of what was going on the coast in New Orleans, they explained it, that New Orleans is in a soup bowl and that it's below sea level. So it sounds to me like New Orleans is below the sea or lower than the sea for some reason. And so it almost sounds like that it's in a lake, or it's in a lower area from the sea. Or it should be flooded by now, is kind of what it sounds like, that some of the areas should have been flooded if they hadn't built the seawall. And so I'd kind of made that comparison to Belize. I was talking about Belize earlier today, in my other video when I was doing the watercoloring. And so I was kind of making a small comparison, because we know that, I mean, down in Florida, they're actually doing a raised dirt landfill. And so my ex-husband, he was telling me, he says, oh, well, they do that. He would get so upset with me. He's like, oh, they do that all the time. They bring in raised dirt landfill and then they make it hard and they mix it with some ready mixed cement and they make these hard areas. And which is, I think that, I'm positive that's true, because, like, where I used to live, the ground was so gall darn hard when we didn't get any rain. It was just like trying to run a shovel through cement. I mean, I'm just surprised that anything grew at all. And so, yeah, but other than that, I wasn't there. I was nowhere close to it. However, it just doesn't scare people, so if there's not some actions taken, other than trying to scare people on TV related on where to live, like saying, okay, we're not gonna place people here to live anymore because it's too dangerous and it's too expensive. So I'm thinking maybe some better practices could come out of this, instead of trying to scare people from moving to certain places. And so that's what I'm seeing, like with on TV. It seems like they try to scare people into not moving to places such as New Orleans and other coastal areas like Florida and things like that. Um, because people still move to those places anyway. Um, but they don't realize how bad it is until there's actually flooding and they can't get out, and or they lose everything and then they have nothing. And so I mean, and I think of all those condominiums and townhomes they built on the Outer Banks, and they were supposed to be for senior citizens to live in. But I've often thought, my goodness sakes, they're on the Outer Banks, they're down there in the hurricanes. I don't know how far they'd have to go to get into a grocery store. Um, and not only that, then they're going to be stuck out on the Outer Banks area. And where would they go? Where would the senior citizens go? So they'd have to leave their townhome, their uh, condominium, or their timeshare, or whatever they bought into. And it's like, I mean, I kind of I knew what a timeshare was, but I always thought that never made sense because I knew someone at one time who bought a timeshare, and I think they paid like $50,000 for it. I mean, they were making payments on it, and that didn't make any sense to me because I thought, well, you're literally sharing something with other people, whatever it is that you bought into. And they had to pay maintenance fees and things. Hello, Raven Sarpong. Now they had to pay maintenance fees and cleaning fees and things like that. So someone went in there like once a year or every so often they did cleaning and stuff like that. So they had to pay a house. They literally had to pay a housekeeper, um, for the timeshare condominiums. Think about that. They literally had to pay. So the people, I mean, this is the scam, I think, in the timeshare condominiums. There's other people who will call the timeshare condominiums a scam too. But it was a private thing. It was a Wall Street thing. And they were even selling the timeshares in Vegas, Las Vegas, the first time I went there. I believe they were the second time Las Vegas was selling timeshare condominiums, and I'd often thought, I mean, it's not a place I'm going to be going that often. I can't afford, I don't even have an income. Why would I buy a timeshare condominium? I'd like to buy a house, not something I share with other people. So, um, hello, Raven. So you're putting hello again. Do you have anything that you'd like to say? That you'd like to write? Or anything else? Um, Ow. Okay. And so let me recap on what I was saying about YouTube is that the networks that we're talking about right now, they're the ones who have the TV stations and cameras and places where they can set up inside of their buildings. And they can have their cameras running 24/7. So if you own a one of those city live stream things or whatever, of course it's going to be easy for them to get their 4,000 watch hours because they're just running all the time. I mean, so with what I have on my um, thing to be able to reach that seems far-fetched, unfortunately, right now. It seems really, really hard to achieve that because I don't have the means to be able to set up and just run it all the time like the TV stations and the networks have. So, um, so I don't know what I have to do. Um, but yeah, I was thinking if you have um, a popular type of topic and a TV studio, then you just run it all the time, and that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. I don't know how they do it, but they just do.